Hi there, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This is actually a page that I made several weeks ago now, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I created this page while I was live streaming over on my Patreon account. And so it might be a little chatty or slower pace than some of my other videos, but I have sped it up to 4 times and I will edit as necessary. I'm starting here with the hip kit. I believe this is the January hip kit that I have, which is the kit that I brought to Crop and Create with me. I went to Crop and Create Moncton in March and I took all these beautiful photos of, or not, I didn't take all of them, but we kind of shared all of our photos as we were taking selfies in the photo booth area. And I printed up some of my favorite photos from the event. I had so many wonderful photos from that event that I ended up scrapbooking several pages, and I still have a few more to scrapbook as well. So, and I might even just make like a pocket page that includes a whole bunch of photos. So I'm thinking about arranging these photos like this in kind of like a grid, or I guess you might call that like a photo collage type of way of putting those photos on my page. This is a piece of cardstock that came in the cardstock kit for that same month. I'm pretty sure I'm using the January kit here from the Hip Kit Club. And I have a few things on my desk that aren't from the Hip Kit Club because I did do a little bit of shopping while I was at Crop and Create. And so I have a couple of extra things and I'll try to point those out if I do use them. I can't even really remember if I use them. So this is one of the challenges of narrating so far after you scrapbook, is that I don't even quite remember what I did. So I'll try to remember as I go. Now, this is a piece of cardstock that came in the kit, or pattern paper, I guess. And I really love the heart pattern on it. And so I'm going to use it as a background on my page. You can see that I was actually thinking about using that striped black and white as a background. I really love black and white mats on my pages. It's just something that I just love the way that it looks. I feel like it adds a real modern touch to my pages. And I do it very often. If you follow my channel, you know that I often will use a black and white paper as my mat. So I like how this looks with the blue background because I don't often use plain backgrounds. I rarely use cardstock in my scrapbook pages. And so I was wanting to use this blue background because there's so much blue in this photo. You can see the blue curtain behind all those flowers, and quite a few of my friends are wearing blue in the photos as well. And so I'm just talking about the overall design here and how I can't really remember what I was thinking, but I guess I was thinking about, am I going to use some layers of paper here behind my photo, or is the photo collage going to be kind of the main event of this page? And I'd like to use this font right here because it picks up on some of the pinky purples that some of us are wearing. And so I'm thinking about that. And I guess I'm just kind of trying to think about whether I'm going to use any layers or just have this page be fairly plain. And I am going to, spoiler alert, I am going to end up with going with a fairly plain approach to this page. I find that that is, oh, look at that. I like that too. I'm going to end up going with the black and white, but I think that really bright floral pattern would have looked really nice as a mat as well, now that I see it from a different angle. Look, I keep going back and forth to it. I like how it picks up on the colors that are in those photos. I'm just pointing out that the blues look really nice with that blue background, and I'm feeling like I'd like to use some of these word stickers. I like the black ones because they have such big impact on a page. And I feel like if I don't use a whole lot of layers of paper, that I'd like to have something of impact, like something to have this page, give it some pizzazz in my book so it doesn't become boring among the other pages that are around it in my album. But at the same time, I have these 3 fairly large photos that will take up most of the space on my page. And when I'm using multiple photos like this, and when they're full-size photos instead of little tiny photos, I find that it's really easy to make a page have a real busy look to it. And that's really not what I wanted for this, because the photos themselves are really busy. We're all wearing different colors. And then there's a fairly busy background with all those medallions in the background. And I kind of feel like if I were to add a whole lot of pattern paper as well, that it might really take away and add a huge amount of busyness, like take away from the overall kind of impact that I want the photos to make, and also just give the page a real busy look. And I don't really want that. So I'm going to, as you can see, I am matting the cluster of photos with black cardstock. And I don't think black cardstock came in that kit. So this is black cardstock, likely from my stash. And I'm just kind of trimming it up because I hand cut it. It wasn't exactly perfect. So I'm just smoothing out some of those edges and making them nice and crisp and at 90-degree angles instead of at weird angles. And I think that really helps the photos have more emphasis on the page. And then I'm thinking that I might want to double matte this page so that the blue also has a black matte on it. So I'm going to cut it down even further. So I had originally cut down this blue background cardstock to 11.5 by 11.5 instead of 12 by 12. And now I'm just cutting off another, looks like maybe 1/4 of an inch on 2 adjacent sides, so that I'll be able to matte this onto a very, very thin black mat and still have the black and white mat show on, you know, as the overall mat. So I like how that looks. It really adds some emphasis to the blue background paper and gives it a really nice finished border. And then once I add that with the matting of that black and white heart paper, I think it's going to look really great. There you go. You see how much more structure that basic background has now with just that simple matting. Matting is something that can really give your page a lot of structure, and I think it also really picks up on all the squares on this page. So those squares and rectangles, those photos are all very square, and there's all those angles of the black matting around the photos. And so then I think that double matting the background just adds to that angular nature of this page. And sometimes I like to offset angular things and try to kind of add some softness, like maybe add some circles or add some other things. And so these are some of the other pages that I actually scrapbooked at the crop, and they're all crop and create pages too. And so I'm going to have several 12 by 12 layouts from this event in my scrapbook, but I'm really pleased with that. I'm just thinking that they're probably going to land together in my albums, and the other ones all have a very similar look to them, as you can tell, and this one is going to look quite different. So I'm thinking about perhaps using this in my Breakout album, and this is a new idea that I'm having. I haven't really thought too much about albums in the past, but I've been thinking about how I store my layouts in albums, and I mostly store them chronological, and I've kind of taken a couple of different themes that emerge from my pages and put them into separate albums called Breakout Albums. That's sort of like just they kind of break out from the chronological with a theme. And so one of them is Favorite Things, I think it's called. And then there's another one that's all about like special people who aren't part of our individual family. And then another one is pre-1998. No, pre-2007. Sorry, that's a very big difference. But yeah, pre-2007, because that's when I started scrapbooking. Or maybe it's pre-2009. Yeah, pre-2009, because that's when I started scrapbooking. And I've scrapbooked pretty much chronologically most of my scrapbooking career, and not in a real strict kind of a way, but I just scrapbook current photos. And so if I do that, my album ends up being pretty much chronological. So now you see me taking out these gold letter stickers, and I suspected that I had some in my stash, and so that's why you see 2 packages of them. Only 1 package comes in the hip kit, but I wasn't sure if I was going to run out of letters, and so I thought I had another set of them, so I pulled them out just in case I needed them, but it turns out I'm not going to need them. And somebody on my live stream had suggested the title of Women of Crop and Create, and I thought that made a wonderful title. And what I'm going to do is spell it out across the bottom of the layout. I'm just going to lay it out on waxed paper first. And then I decided, wait a minute, I have this tool, so I think I'll use my thicker alignment tools, especially since it's such a long title. I'm not going to want to place these stickers twice, so this will help me just have to place them once. So my thought here was that if I had the title span the entire length of my page, what that would do is kind of give me a different look, kind of like a graphic look, a typographical kind of a look where the title becomes part of the design of the page. And it's something that I don't do very often, so I think that it will help this page really stand out and have a different look compared to some of the other pages that I've done. And again, this page is probably going to go in my, what I'm calling my breakout album, so it's not going to be alongside those other pages that had a real soft orange and yellow and pink look to them. So I really love these gold puffy stickers, these gold puffy letter stickers. They're from Thickers and they're a Dear Lizzie set, and I really, really love them. They're so beautiful. I was so happy to see them come out again. I don't know if they've kind of re-released them or if there's still sets kicking around from the first release, but I have them in my stash from maybe a year or 2 ago, and then they also came in a recent hip kit. This would be the January kit, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just spelling out the Women of Crop and Create, and I'm thinking about using a hashtag because a hashtag will allow me to scooch all these words up against one another and not have to put spaces in between them. And that will help me with spacing. I basically want this to span the entire width of my page. And so adding a hashtag will add some, something to the front of it. And now I just have to, because this font doesn't come with a hashtag and I don't want to use a different font, I want to use the same font. So I'm just going to make a hashtag. I started with an H, and then I'm cutting off some other pieces of other letters that I don't think I'll use. I typically don't use Zs because I don't have anybody in my life with a Z name. If my daughter had been a boy, I would, but I don't. Any guesses on what my daughter's name would have been if she was a boy? If you have any guesses, leave me a comment below and I will let you know in the next video that I do. Also, I have a video coming up, and I can't even tell you when it will be loaded because my scrapbooking time is very different than it once was. But I have an update video that I'm going to be filming where I'm going to talk a little bit about my channel, some changes in the frequency of my posting, and kind of where I'll be moving forward. I'm still here. I know that it's been a while since I've posted a process video, but I do plan to continue to create pages and videos, and I would love to share with you guys my ideas about my channel moving forward. So check out an upcoming video. As I said, I can't say exactly when it will be posted. I hope to post it before next week. So here I am, and you can see me pausing here, and part of it is I'm just chatting with some of the people on the live stream, but also I feel like I just need to think about what else am I going to do with this page, because right now it has a very clean and simple look, and I could just slap those photos onto the background page and just leave it as it is and put it in my book, and that would be fine. But I'm thinking of a couple of things. First of all, I want to make this page a little bit more interesting. And second of all, I am thinking about putting the names of the people in these photos. And so here we go. I'm going to do this, and then before I put it down, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to do that quite yet. So I am going to show you guys something that I discovered at Crop and Create, and it might not be my own idea, like somebody else might have discovered this already, but I was at Crop and Create and I was trying to get like a watercolored look on the background of one of my papers, and I didn't have any watercolor supplies. I also didn't have a whole lot of space at the table I was at, and I didn't want to create a big mess. So what I did was I went up to the store and I bought two distressings, two of the tiny little distressings, because I actually bought colors I already had at home, but I just didn't bring anything like that. So I bought two tiny little distressings, and right here I'm using two different distressings because I'm at home again and I don't need to stick to those two colors. But what I did was I took a piece of packaging from something else that I bought at Crop and Create, and I just used the packaging technique like this. And the packaging technique is not anything new, and we've been doing it for a long time. But what I discovered is that you can use the packaging technique to get splatters too. And maybe I'm like really late to the party. Maybe everybody else already knew this, but for some reason it had never really occurred to me to use the packaging technique to get splatters. So I will show you that in case you didn't already know about it, in case you're like me. And it's a real game changer for me. I love it for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you when I get there. So as you can see, I started by using the packaging technique just to add this watercolor look. I'm using two different colors of blue just to give it a little bit more interest. And then I added some extra watercolor and some water, and then I just flicked it. And it made this beautiful splatter effect. I love how even the splatter is, and I love how I can control where it lands by just changing where I put the the packaging. And I just really, really love this. And one of the things that I especially love about it is that when I flick anything else, whether it's a splatter tool or a paintbrush or the nozzle on a mist, I almost always get little bits of mist that go upwards instead of downwards. And I end up with my camera equipment and my lighting that's over top. It kind of gets flicked with mist a lot of the times. And that, obviously I don't want my camera equipment covered in mist. So this is something that, because the packaging keeps it pointed down, like the splatter cannot go up because the packaging keeps it from going up. This is a really great technique for me, and I think that I'm considering it a game changer in that I don't think I'm going to use any of those other techniques for splatter anymore, because I can just get this look so much easier by just using a piece of packaging. So you just take your little finger and you just flick, 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 and it's as easy as pie. And it gives you a really nice combination of really fine splatter and also some pretty big splatter as well. I just needed to add a little bit more watercolor up there. I wanted some to be emerging from those three different corners, and I just flicked a little bit more mist there as well. I'm using my heat gun to just dry this up. And that now my photo is ready to be placed. So as you might recall, I've already put I guess I'm going to put a little bit more on there. As you can recall, I already have some adhesive on my photo. More of that flicking to just get, and I wanted this to be really pretty heavily splattered because so much of it is going to be covered by the photo that if I don't have enough on there, you won't see it at all. So it looks like quite a lot here without the photo on it, but once you put the photo on, you can see just this really nice amount of both watercolor and splatter emerging from those three corners that the photo collage creates. I quite like that look, and I feel like this page might be enough just as it is, but I wanted to add a little something else. So first of all, I felt like that gold title, the gold puffy stickers, being the only gold thing on the page, I just wanted to bring some more gold into the layout. So I looked at my little marker swatch book and to see if I had any metallic gold markers. Some of my markers weren't in the swatch book, so I'm just looking at, I have an opaque stick here, which I think is a Marvy Uchida marker. I also have a Sharpie. But I think that the opaque stick is, or opaque sticks, I think it ends with an X. I think it has a more yellow tone of gold that picks up more on the yellowy tone of the letter stickers there. Either the Sharpie or that one would have been fine. That gold slick writer is completely dried up. It's not very good at all, so that wasn't a contender at all. Either of those markers would have been fine, but since I was able to make a choice between two, I chose the one that was a little bit more yellowy. And so I'm going to do some doodling around the outside edges of the photos here and kind of mimicking the mat. So I'm just going to go all the way around it. And I'm thinking here about perhaps journaling around the outside edges in this gold marker. Like, I thought that this might be a way that I could put all the ladies' names. And then I decided that that might be a little bit too busy for what I wanted for this page. I really wanted this page to have a clean and simple look and not have too much. So I'm doing a little bit of sample printing here to see how the printing would look with it. It's a fairly thick marker, so I did not want to do that, so I decided not to. And I'm just doing this doodly kind of interrupted line that has some dots, it has some hash marks, it has some X's, it has some circles, just to kind of break up the monotony of the outlining and give it a little bit of a whimsical look. So I like how that brings some gold into the page. So it's not just all down at the bottom part of the layout. And then I like this awesome puffy sticker. I liked the impact that the high five gave. It's kind of, I like how bright it is and I like its use of black, but I thought that awesome just worked better than like nobody's high-fiving. I know I could have used high five anyways, but I decided to use awesome because it just fits better in terms of, it just makes better sense to have awesome than high five on a page. I thought about putting some more stickers, including those epoxy stickers. I'm actually not a huge fan of epoxy stickers, so I decided not to use them. There's so many beautiful things that come in these kits. There's no point in using something you don't like. There's plenty of nice, beautiful, and there's so much variety in these kits that, you know, you can pick and choose. And usually people will have leftovers. So if I'm going to have leftovers, I'd rather have leftovers be the things that I like less. So I thought about doing like multicolored hearts on this, and then I decided to use the same color of hearts. Just because the multicolor hearts were going to feel a little bit too busy. And I already mentioned that those photos are kind of busy. And so I want the page itself to not compete or take away from the photos at all. I wasn't too happy with the placement of these dots. As you can see, these dots also didn't come in the kit. They came from my stash. I actually bought them at Crop and Create. You can see that I really struggled with the placement of those dots, and I'm still not 100% happy with them, but you can fuss and fuss and it doesn't look all that much better. So you just have to stop fussing at some point and just leave them where they landed, and they look fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I felt like those hearts, though, were just looking a little bit too bland. Like they were too similar. I was going for a tone-on-tone effect, but I thought that those hearts were just a little bit too similar to the background paper that they were on. So I took some Copic markers and I decided to just add a little bit of color to them. And as you can see, it's still a tone-on-tone, but it just gives them a little bit more vibrancy. Brightens them up a little bit. And I was going to use a different color for each of the hearts, but I think I ended up deciding to use the same color. Or I switched, but I think what ended up happening was I switched colors, but the result wasn't all that different. I could have just used the same color because I used two shades that were just so similar to each other that by the time you put them over blue, they were just looking the same. I darkened it up a little bit. I might have switched markers. I can't remember what I did here, but I think I switched to a darker color because they were looking too similar. So I like how they stand out. They also look more similar to the enamel dots that are beside them. They're not actually enamel dots. They're this really cool, like flat version of an enamel dot, like a matted version. So they're not shiny at all. And I really love that about them. They're from Photoplay, and I bought some things from Photoplay. I'll show you guys what I bought at Crop and Create on an upcoming video. Here I am going, thinking again, maybe I might want to switch, but I'm going to stick with the black and white background. I like it. It makes the most of the color is in the photos now, and the rest of the page just kind of melts away, and the photos become the real dominant aspect of this page. Or the dominant focal point. So now I'm thinking, where am I going to put some journaling? I really do want to put these ladies' names, although they're all my friends, and I feel like I'm going to know these people forever and ever and ever. But then I thought maybe someone else might be looking at this page someday, and I might want to put the ladies' names. So you can see me thinking about putting it in a couple of different places. If I put it on the front, I'm going to use that really light gray marker so that it doesn't add any design elements. It would just kind of like fade away into the background, but you could still see it. But I ended up deciding to just put the names on the back because I guess it's kind of like it doesn't interfere with my design as much, but it's still recorded. And I don't do a whole lot of journaling on the backs of my pages. It seems to me that a lot of people don't really pull pages out of the page protectors when they're looking at pages. So it seems like kind of like an unexpected place to put journaling if you're not a scrapbooker. So a scrapbooker might know to look at the back of the page, but a non-scrapbooker might not know that. But then I figure it's better to just write them down, and if nobody sees it, that's fine. But if somebody is really wanting to know who these people are, they might snoop around a little bit and discover the photos or the list in the back. So these photos are not my regular photos. I'm sorry that the quality is not quite as good. They're also not as conducive to using the Ken Burns effect. My camera equipment was being borrowed, and so these are what they are. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will be making more, so stay tuned to my channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, and click the little bell if you want notifications. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.